Our learning goal for today is I can add mixed numbers with different denominators. Let's take a look at our first problem. Denise mixed 1 4/5 ounces of blue paint with 2 1/10 ounces of yellow paint. How many ounces of paint did Denise mix? Let's think about our steps. Step 1, we have to find a common denominator. So I have 1 4/5, and I have 2 1/10. So I need to find which multiple would work for both fractions. So if I listed the multiples of 5, 10, actually I can stop at 10 because I know my other denominator is 10. So therefore, if I listed the multiples of that number, I would have 10 as my least common multiple. So I need to make my equivalent fractions. So this would be 2 1/10 that would remain the same. And this one, the 1 would remain the same. But to get from 5 to 10, I would do times 2. And what I do on the bottom, I have to do on the top. So this would be 1 8/10. Now we need to take a look at step 2. Step 2 is to add the equivalent fractions. So we would have 8/10 plus 1/10 equals 9/10. And then step 3 is to add the whole numbers. 1 plus 2 is 3. And then step 4 would be to simplify if needed. Well, 3 9/10 is already as small as it will go, so there's no need to simplify. So the answer to my question, how many ounces of paint did Denise mix, it would be 3 9/10. So let's take a look at another problem. My problem is 5 1/3 plus 2 1/2. I have to remember my steps. The first step, I have to find a common denominator. So in order to do that, I need to find a common multiple. So let me list my multiples of 3. So that'd be 3, 6, 9, 12. I'll stop there. And so then my multiples of 2, 2, 4, 6. Look, my least common multiple is 6. I can use 6. So 6 is going to be my new denominator. So once again, I'm going to find my equivalent fractions first. So 3 to 6, I'd have to do times 2. So what I do on the bottom, I have to do on the top. So this would be 2/6. I can't forget my whole number, so I would bring that over. So this is going to be 5 2/6. So then I have 2 1/2. 2 to 6 would have to go times 3. What I do on the bottom, must do on the top. So I would have 3/6. My whole number, once again, comes over. So now I have 2 3/6. Then step 2 is to add the equivalent fractions. So I have the fractions part of it first would be 2/6 plus 3/6 would equal 5/6. And then I have to add the whole numbers. So 5 plus 2 would be 7. And then if I needed to simplify, I could. Well, 5, 6, they're consecutive numbers, so I know there's nothing I can simplify. They're already small. It's already as small as it will go. I want to look at the same problem for just a second. I want to actually show you that I can use any denominator that they have in common, any multiple that they have in common, to still find the same answer. So I have 5 1/3 and 2 1/2. So let's say I just didn't find the least common multiple. Let's say I just found another multiple. So let's say we use 12. 12 is also it's a multiple of 3, and it's also a multiple of 2. So I should be able to use any fraction as long as it's an equivalent fraction. So to get from 3 to 12, I have to multiply times 4. What I do on the bottom, I have to do on the top. And then the same thing applies. I still bring over my whole number. So now I have 5 4/12. So then if I have 2 1/2 in order to get to 12, I have to do times 6. So what I do on the bottom, have to do on the top. So I would have 2 6/12. So then I have to add my equivalent fractions. So if I'm adding them up, 4 plus 6 is 10, and then my denominator stays the same. Then I need to add my whole numbers, so I would have 7 10/12. Well, here's where the step simplify is very important. So I have to think, I can now simplify 10/12. I know they're both even numbers, so I could actually divide them both by 2. So I could do divide by 2, and I would actually get 5 6. So if I simplified in this case, my answer would be 7 and 5/6, which if you remember, that's exactly the same answer that I had last time. The only difference is this time I had to simplify. Just like last week when we were adding and subtracting fractions, sometimes the fractions would go vertical and sometimes the fractions would be written horizontally. So I want to show you both varieties here. So I have 1 3/10 plus 2 2/5. I want our brains to be able to work them out both ways. So the first step I have to do is find my common denominator. My common denominator could be found by listing multiples. So I know that my smallest number is 5, so let me start listing multiples of 5. 5, 10, wait a minute. The other denominator is 10, so I don't even have to list them out. I know that my denominator will be 10 for each one. So if I have to change 1 3/10 to something with a denominator of 10, I don't really have to do anything. So the 1 3/10 will remain the same. So then I have 2 2/5. Well, in order to get from 5 to 10, I would have to times by 2. So I'm going to end up with 2 4/10. So if I add these together, I'm still going to have to add my fractions first. So it would be 3 plus 4 is 7. My denominator stays the same. And then I add my whole numbers. So my answer would be 3 7/10. I want you to try a couple practice problems on your own. Remember to write them down on your note-taking page. The first one is 3 4/9 plus 3 1/2. Don't forget, you need to find a common denominator first. The second problem I want you to try is 4 3/12 plus 4 1/4. Try writing both problems as they are. So one I want you to write horizontally, and the second one I want you to write vertically, because I want you to practice both ways. If you have any questions, make sure to write them down on your note-taking page. See you in class tomorrow.